Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Kobayashi Island. If you haven't been following the series so far, or have been skipping around and haven't caught me say this yet, this is a series where I'm building an island city in City Skylines without any roads or outside connections that aren't ships or airplanes. And right now it's just ships. I'm loosely basing the style off of Japan with a lot of Japanese and Asian assets from the workshop, but I'm not really attempting to copy exactly anything specific. There's a few general features that are similar, like for instance, in episode 8, I did sort of my own take on Chiyoda City, which is an island with a moat in the middle of Tokyo where the Imperial Palace is, but mine is pretty small and generally pretty different, so sort of the broad stroke idea is similar, but other than that, I'm just doing my own thing. The city as a whole has grown pretty naturally from the old town that got built first. And now at this point, I'm starting to work my way out of the city towards more low-density residential areas and farms. This episode, the most important thing for me was getting the style of this new area down and how it would transition from the city to the country. I spent a lot of time looking at Google Earth before doing this episode, kind of browsing around the Japanese rural areas that are just outside of Tokyo and seeing what it looks like there. I was noticing that in these areas, it's usually not like a single house for each field like it is in some other parts of the world. A lot of times it's more like clusters of 10 or 20 little houses really close together with some farms around them, kind of like a super mini village or town or something. I was thinking this concept could really translate well to City Skylines because when you're placing down farms from the Industries DLC, all the farm assets are rectangle shaped, so it's really annoying trying to figure out what to do with the little triangle shaped areas that get left if you're building at an angle or not on a perfect grid or something. So my plan here is to basically start squeezing in as many farms as I can and then fill in any area that's left in between the farms with little pockets of like 5 or 10 small houses. I've had this great pack of houses from the workshop subscribed to for a while. They're called the Japanese Low Residential House Pack by Takashi69. Takashi 269. Sorry, that's good. Sounds like a rapper I know. And I decided it was finally time to use them because all the houses in that pack are super tiny, like 1x1 or 2x1 grid spaces. So they work really well when I try to squeeze in a bunch and make them really tight together. What I did to start off was place them down in a row, every single one of them that comes in the pack, and just start using the Move It mod to copy and paste them into position. First place I did this was right along the train tracks where there's still some taller buildings spilling over from the backside of downtown. This is like the beginning of the transition from city to country. So my thought was I would establish the style of really dense small houses here with like a whole large neighborhood in this style, and then have that neighborhood break off into smaller pieces as it gets further from the city. Basically like have a big area of dense houses that feels like it's part of the city, and then smaller and smaller pockets of dense houses to segue to the farms. I think the main exception to the pockets getting smaller as you move away is going to be around the train stations. When I was looking on Google Maps, I noticed that there are a lot of larger towns sprinkled throughout the Japanese countryside, like maybe a couple hundred or 1,000 people live there, and I thought that could also translate really well to Kobayashi Island, doing like larger towns around the rural train stations, at least in this like flat area here. I was thinking that these would be in the same dense residential style, but also each have their own unique area for people to work at. Like maybe one of the towns has a large brewery that takes up a good portion of the area, or some of the unique Industries DLC factories. I basically want the towns to be part residential and part industrial, where the people in the town probably mostly work at the local factory. Another thing I sort of had planned for this area in the future was to do like a beach town along the water past the Old Town Harbor. I have these 2 train lines that run down the side of this neighborhood I'm building now, and I was thinking that they would make a stop at one of these rural towns and then split up, where one goes down to the beach and dead ends there, and the other one continues straight towards the hills. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to this anytime soon, but that area down by the water is definitely going to be saved for something cool, I think. What I want to make is sort of like a touristy town, like a beach town, with maybe a boardwalk amusement park or a short seaside tram line and a bunch of really nice hillside houses up above overlooking it. I'm thinking something like Santa Cruz or Laguna Beach in California or Brighton, England, but I think I need to find some sort of similar equivalent or similar place in Japan that I'll be able to take some inspiration from so that I don't go off the rails and screw up the style of the whole thing. So I probably won't start this project until I really know what I'm doing. Behind that area, up in the hills, I'm thinking that the other train line that splits off goes up towards what I'm thinking is like a mining town, and that way I can incorporate an ore industry. There's this place I've been to in Arizona called Jerome that I've always been wanting to make something similar in City Skylines, and thought this might be a good place to do it. Obviously, the buildings and the style of it would be much more Japanese, but basically Jerome is a silver mining town that's built along this really steep hillside. It's like so steep that the whole town is pretty much built along this single road that zigzags back and forth really sharply up the mountain. And then right in the middle of the town, like halfway up, there's this really big building that's the entrance to the mine and the like mine headquarters. So I think my plan with this is to do that same sort of zigzag thing and do a big building in the center that's the mine entrance, and have the passenger train line come up to there. And I basically want to have like a second dedicated cargo line load up ore from underneath the mine and take it down the mountain to a ore processing area somewhere else, like maybe in the harbor, so that the single road doesn't have like an insane amount of truck traffic going up and down. Other than that, the main thing I'm still trying to figure out in this area is what to do next to the lower part of the reservoir, like where the electrical facilities for the dam are. Since it's so close to the city center, I've been thinking either like apartment complexes or big stores like an IKEA, or just some more industrial stuff like how it is on the other side of the freeway there. I've even thought about making it into a swamp or something, but I'm really not sure one way or the other. One of the other things that I found on Google Maps in the rural areas around Tokyo were some really awesome canals for getting water to the farms. When I made the canals here in Kobayashi Island, I wasn't really sure if what I was doing had a real world equivalent. So it was really exciting to find an example of basically exactly what I had envisioned. But the canals that I found were a lot skinnier than the ones that I placed down, so I think I need to figure out a different way to build them where they don't have to be so thick. The canals in Japan also had this cool feature where they sometimes would have concrete sides to them and other times would have grassy banks and would switch back and forth between the two. So I'm definitely trying to do something like that, where the canals have different types of sides and different widths and really look like a public works project that didn't get built all at once, more like in chunks over time. Coming back to what's going on in this episode, I placed down a roundabout in the middle of this neighborhood. I kind of like doing that here in Kobayashi Island whenever I have a spot where a lot of minor roads meet up at the same place. I haven't really been using roundabouts too much. Maybe I'll do like a big one downtown or something. But for these little ones in the neighborhoods, I think it looks really cool because it gives the neighborhood like a clear center. So here off the roundabout, I have a few shops, like a convenience store or something, and a small park with a few tables and benches. At this point, since I'm getting out of downtown, I'm starting to get a little worried about land value and making sure that all the Rico buildings that I place down actually have high enough land value to keep them open and occupied. So what I did with this park was place down some more of the boom crowd generators, which act like invisible parks and bring people in and raise the land value. So I'm definitely going to have to squeeze in some more things like this in rural areas to keep the land value up, like doctors' offices or schools or something, because I'm already knowing that all these farms are going to be lowering the land value a lot. So that's going to be an ongoing struggle in this area for sure. Hopefully having the land value bonus from the canals and the water in the canals is going to be like my saving grace here. One of the other things that I did this episode, which I did right at the beginning, was change the main road that leads out of Old Town and into this area from having a concrete median to having a grass median, and then put down a bunch of trees and bushes and shrubs and some barriers along it to give it like a totally different look than the main roads in the downtown. And along the road, I started placing down a bunch of lower density commercial buildings to kind of help with the land value. One of the buildings that I placed down was a car wash, which I think turned out really well as a gas station and a few other random little stores. For the car wash, there are these awesome oil stain decals that I used, which look like soapy water runoff, sort of. And then I did this fun thing where I got some metal posts and some Japanese signs and made like one of those areas at the car wash that you drive under, and it shows you all the different levels of clean that you can pay for. I also used some prop cars to make like a line of cars waiting to go through, and then put a big chain link fence around the whole thing so that they can lock up at night. So for this episode, I really only placed down a couple farms, 2 crop storage areas, a milking parlor, and an empty field that I was thinking would be like an area on rotation where they don't necessarily plant crops there every single year. That's something that they do in a lot of places in order to preserve like the quality of the soil and prevent a dust bowl. So I thought that would be realistic here and also kind of needed because it allows me to make areas that look like farms but aren't perfect rectangles. I kind of did a similar thing when I made the apple and orange orchards, where I was able to make a non-rectangle shaped farming area by using the prop line tool to place down a bunch of like matching trees in perfect rows so that it looks like it's part of the farm, but really it's just some trees next to it. So obviously it's not functional, but areas like this really help to make the whole place look more realistic because of the unique shapes they can be. And an added bonus, they also just help with traffic congestion because they're not actually like working farms. So that's about it for this episode. I just wanted to thank everyone for watching. If you like the series so far, or have a suggestion or a comment or idea for something cool to build, please feel free to let me know in the comments. Next episode, I'll be finishing out this transition area between the city and the countryside and figure out what to do with the spot next to the dam's electrical area. So look forward to that, and I'll see you next time.